Hello, fight fans. Seattle Mike Fights with Friends here. Everybody, please hit that like button or I will tell Jon Jones he's invited to your child's birthday party. Make sure you're subscribed and don't forget to double tap that bell so you're notified every time we drop a new video or go live like January 22nd for the fight for the baddest man on the planet. Francis Ngannou taking on Ciro Gone. We're having a huge contest. We're giving away a bunch of stuff. We'll be talking about that in future videos. But today, I wanted to talk about a certain individual by the name of Jonathan Dwight Jones. You guys know he was light heavyweight champion forever, basically undefeated, and the guy outside of the cage is an absolute train wreck, but has been basically undefeated when it comes to collecting punishment for any of the horrible things that he does outside of the octagon. But this time it looked like they would finally get him. Jon Jones charged with domestic battery against his longtime girlfriend and a felony charged with tampering with a police vehicle. Head-butted a cop car while getting arrested, resulting in more than $5,000 worth of damage. And we said, finally, Jon Jones is going to get his just due. His camp dropped him. He got kicked out, basically, of his training facility. And now we're going to see the domestic charge come down and a felony. So let's go to court. Even a cat only has 9 lives. And if I'm counting right, this is maybe about the 10th incident for Mr. Jon Jones. Cue the music. American Asshole, starring Jon Jones as himself, Dana White as the enabler, Daniel Cormier as receiving end. Reviews from Jake Paul. This man is a true asshole. Wow, I thought I was an asshole. Conor McGregor. When it comes to assholes, Jon Jones is in a league of his own. Chris Brown.
He's an asshole, sir.
I know that. What's his name?
That is his name, sir. Asshole. Major asshole.
And Jon Jones has been a major asshole. May of 2012, Jones was involved in an accident where he drove his car into a telephone pole in Binghamton, New York. At the time, Jones was arrested for driving under the influence and later pled guilty to the DUI. He was not sentenced to any jail time and instead had to pay a fine, and his license was suspended for 6 months. Actually, some of the worst punishment that Jon Jones has ever gotten. August 2014, in the lead up to UFC 178, Jones and Daniel Cormier were involved in an altercation during Fight Week media obligations. The two needed to be separated and receive punishment from the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Jones was fined $50,000 and was sentenced to 40 hours of community service. Also, we got the beautiful quote from Daniel Cormier. At this time, my forehead is a no-no place. January 2015, Jones was scheduled to fight at UFC 182 when prior to the fight he tested positive for a metabolite which is known to be in cocaine. Jon Jones was tested again prior to the fight and tested clean, so he was able to compete. After the event, he admitted to making a mistake and putting himself in rehab for a day, and that's where the famous one-day rehab comes from. April 2015, Jones was fresh off his UFC 178 win over Cormier and seemed to be riding high when he again found himself in legal trouble. Jones was arrested in Albuquerque, New Mexico after leaving the scene of a hit and run. Jones was charged with a felony of leaving the scene of a crime and having a marijuana pipe in the vehicle. One of the victims of the hit and run was a pregnant woman. Jones turned himself into police and was sentenced to 18 months of probation and community service. He was stripped of the title. Next in line, right after this, Jones tested positive following his unanimous decision win over Ovid's St. Preux. for the interim light heavyweight championship. He was later stripped of the title. At the time of the positive test, Jon Jones was scheduled to take on Daniel Cormier in a title unification bout for the light heavyweight title at UFC 200. However, after Jones tested positive, the fight was scrapped with Jones facing Anderson Silva. Jon Jones tested positive for turinabol after victory over Daniel Cormier at UFC 214. Once again, Jon Jones was stripped of his light heavyweight title after he tested positive for turinabol. After defeating Daniel Cormier at UFC 214 to secure the light heavyweight championship, Jones popped for turinabol metabolite. This time around, Jones' urine sample from pre-fight tested positive, which is an anaerobic steroid. July 2019, Jon Jones was charged with battery following claims from a, quote, waitress that Jones hit her and assaulted her. Jones pled no guilty to his charge and was placed on a 90-day probation. Could he go 90 days without getting in trouble? I don't know, but this waitress happened to be in a strip club that Jon Jones decided it was okay for him to do a little bit of smacking around. Next up, UFC light heavyweight Jones was arrested on suspicion of driving while under the influence and negligent use of a firearm after officers heard a gunshot and found him in a parked car with a handgun and a half bottle of liquor early on Thursday, Albuquerque police said. This was in March of 2020. You can't make this crap up. So he is shooting his gun into the air. He's got a half-empty bottle of liquor, and he says, I was bored and restless. Next up, former UFC fighter Jon Jones was arrested Friday and charged with felony tampering to a vehicle and misdemeanor battery domestic violence after he allegedly pulled a woman's hair and headbutted a police car. The report describes Jones as an emotional roller coaster during the arrest. This was, of course, directly after being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame for his 2013 fight against Alexander Gustafsson. Now he's finally sensed what would happen. Domestic violence charges against Jon Jones have been dropped in Nevada after the former UFC light heavyweight champion and current undisputed asshole made a plea deal with prosecutors on Tuesday. According to official documents, Jon Jones, 34, pled no contest to charges of injuring or tampering with a vehicle, which stemmed from Jones allegedly smashing his head against the hood of a police car after being arrested at a Caesar Palace Hotel and Casino on September 24th. And I cannot think of a bigger asshole of the last millennial, especially in sports, especially in combat sports. Guys, I know I kind of made a joke out of some of this, but I feel this is a big problem. I do not take it lightly. Jon Jones, I feel, is not just a menace to our sport. He's a menace to society in the fact that he continues to do horrible things outside of the cage and come into the cage, juiced up to the gills. Anthony Lionheart Smith said he was notified before their fight recently that Jon Jones failed every single drug test. I mean, they had to reschedule an entire UFC, move everyone and all their tickets across states because of this entitled man. Am I overreacting? What should happen to Jon Jones? You decide. You guys let me know down there in the comments. I want to know what you guys think. What should happen to Jon Jones? Should he fight again? Should he be arrested? Should he be in jail forever? Am I just overreacting? As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses next time.